We'll go ahead and we'll get started. Module 3 of our career transition series. We're making it halfway through, y'all. Thanks for coming and still being here and participating. Just a couple announcements. Not anything new, probably. Module 2 homework that was due today. Some flexibility, right? Hopefully y'all are finding some time to do it, just to find your resume, upload it, make sure it has your current education and what you're doing on it, and go ahead and submit that. But today we have a great speaker coming today, Joanne, talking to us about not networking 101 and how to build relationships for success. And it's going to be an interactive session today, so I hope y'all ask questions, participate, get as much as possible from our in-house speaker today. And I will pass it over to you because I don't want to take up too much of your time. I know you have a good presentation planned for us. So I will go ahead and stop my screen and pass it over to you. If we could all give Joanne a warm virtual welcome.
Hey everybody, thank you so much for inviting me. This is like my most popular and, one of my most fun presentations because it's the one that most often people contact me after and say how much of a difference it made. So what I found when I was a graduate student was everybody told me I should network, but nobody told me how. And so this is the how, I hope. And the how I want to preface by saying is going to be different for different people. So there, I am an extroverted person, I would say, by if you take the strict definition. My husband is a level 12 introvert, like goes to 11 kind of introvert, He's a VP at MITRE. He has 800 people in his group. He's very successful. You do not have to be extroverted to be a good person at building relationships. You have to find your way. So some of the suggestions I make may resonate for you and some of them may not. I have the chat open. I'm pretty good at, feel free to fire questions whenever you want, but at the end we can have some discussion also. So let's get into it. So I think y'all know what networking is, but it's not just like meeting people and exchanging cards and getting as many people you can in your LinkedIn account. It's really developing relationships of people that you know, that you do things for, that do things for you, that you know well enough to be able to do that. So one of the tricks of networking is it has to be timely. And we're going to talk about why that is. It's often coincidental how networking leads to opportunities. Like last week I talked to someone and this week I talked to someone who had a job and I matched them up and she got that job. If I hadn't talked to that person last week, I might not have remembered that they were looking for something. So it has to do with a little bit of kismet, but the kismet is staying in the game. The luck of it is that you're keeping it moving so that those fortuitous things can happen. So if you think about how you get jobs, and I think that networking and relationship building is important for all kinds of reasons: support, finding people that look like you, that are not like you, learning from other people. It's not just for jobs. But if you ask scientists, and this is about 1,000 scientists some years ago, how they got their jobs, this is what they said. But I mean, I think this is kind of a bad survey because all these other things here are also networking: recruiters, meeting them, interacting at conferences, your alumni network, serendipity, that's the luck that I talked about. And LinkedIn is the networking website. So it's more like 85% of people access jobs through relationships, not through ads in the paper or through applying online. And so why is that? Well, this is some actual data from a big study that was done by a recruiting firm. 7% of applications in this study were referrals. That just means like, hey, I know Rachel. Sorry, I'm picking you out. Your name's the first one on the top. I know Rachel. She's really great. I can't tell you if she's right for the job, but I can tell you she's a good person to interview. So referrals get your resume on someone's desk. They get you in the door for the interview. They don't get you the job. You have to get you the job. That's what your whole course is teaching you, how to get you the job, but they get you the interview. And 40% of hires come from referrals. So y'all are scientists. You get what that means. A huge percentage of the jobs. It's sort of like early application to college. It's disproportional to the number of applications, how many people get their jobs that way. And why is that? Well, there's this wild card factor. If you hire someone who you don't know at all, even if you call their references, and the references are strangers, they're not people you trust, you could hire that person and 2 weeks later, they pull a knife on someone in the lab who borrowed their pipettes and you have to call security. That actually happened to me. So people do not like to hire strangers. They like to hire people who will refer to them as decent human beings. I know Joanne, she talks a lot, but she's actually really good at the bench. She's worth interviewing for this position, you know? And so that's why referrals are so important. And they play an enormous role in our infrastructure of science STEM careers because it's actually a smaller community than you think. People know people. So it's not just for non-academic jobs, by the way. People have this perception that academia is somehow pure from this type of business speak, from networking. How do you think stuff happens in academia? I have news for you. It is all about relationships. It's about who you know, who's reviewing your papers, who's inviting you to speak, who's collaborating with you and thinking about you, and how you get promoted. It is all about relationships and opportunities. So learning how to do this skillfully is really important for pretty much every field that you're in, and knowing how to do it again in a way that's comfortable for you. So I didn't introduce myself because I have this slide that tells you a little bit my career and how relationships gave me every one of the opportunities. I have never gotten a job from an ad in the paper. One of the reasons, or from an ad online, we used to have the paper. One of the reasons why that's true is because a lot of jobs, and most of the jobs I got, were never advertised anywhere, not on LinkedIn, not on a job board, not anywhere. I had to know someone to even be given the opportunity. So my first job, my PhD advisor was on some boards and some of the first biotech companies. First one on the East Coast was Genetics Institute. Out in the West Coast was Genentech. Back in those days, they were pretty much the only game in town. He was on the board of Genetics Institute. He introduced me to a bunch of his friends. I had 3 interviews. I got 1 offer, and I worked at BASF and Abbott for 15 years. And then when I went to leave Abbott, I had lunch with a friend who was starting a startup with Craig Mello, who had just won the Nobel Prize for discovering RNAi. And he said, "Hey, we're starting this company with Craig Mello. Do you want to come work here?" And I was like, "Yeah, I do." And 2 weeks later, that's what I did. So that was no ad was ever advertised for that. He knew me. He knew what I was capable of. My next transition to Adgene job was never advertised. I was the CEO, executive director of Adgene. For those of you that are molecular biologists, I hope you've heard of Adgene and you use the website frequently for its resources. And I spent 10 years there. That was a direct referral. I knew some of the board members. I had given the executive director and founder of Adgene, Melina Fan, an award at a Women in Science event a year before. So she had met me through that type of relationship building. When I left Adgene after 10 years, I started to work I'm actually a diversity and inclusion and culture consultant for STEM-based organizations, and I do a lot of career coaching. All of the work that I get now is through LinkedIn and direct contact. I spent a little time at Bentley running the Center for Women in Business on an interim role, and now the consulting I do is all by referral and direct contact. So you can see I never got a job by applying for it with a resume specifically. So what's the point? The point is to grow your network. And the reason to do it now is because when you really need it, that's not the time to do it, because then you're like a little desperate. And people sense that, and it makes them uncomfortable. So if you're coming at people like, "I need a job, I need a job, I need a job," and they don't have a job for you, they're going to get like tense, and they're going to be much less relaxed about building that network. So the time to grow your network is to do it at a time when it's more relaxed, when you can, and basically to do it all the time. I tell people you should always be looking for another job, because at least in the science fields that I'm familiar with, you could get laid off, you could want to change, you could hate your boss, you could make a job change at any time. So you always want to be lining those things up. You don't want to wait until you need it to think about growing your network. So I was just telling, I was just talking before with Lauren and saying, when I was a grad student, I had a baby, and then I had another baby during my first 2 years at my job. So I was busy. I get busy. But that is also when I founded our local chapter of the Association for Women in Science, which meant that 2 or 3 nights a month, I drove into town, into Cambridge for an event and met people as part of my schedule. I had on my calendar at work 2 days a week, I have to have lunch with another human being. I forced myself in ways to build relationships with people. And this was not specifically when I needed a job. It was when I specifically had the leeway to build relationships in a relaxing way. So you have to kind of schedule this stuff into your day. I get busy, but y'all should, you know, don't make that the reason why you don't find time. This is like part of your career. Learning your technical stuff is important. This is not a soft skill. This is just a skill. You got to do it. Okay. So as a culture and inclusion consultant, I would be remiss if I didn't talk to you a little bit about what networking is like before we get into some of the practical tips. So one of the biggest barriers to networking, it turns out to be bias, just like it's one of the biggest barriers to scientists progressing in general. And then we have, and this is not my talk about, you know, inclusion and bias in science. That's a whole different presentation. You could probably find that online somewhere. But we are all affected by the fact that we carry biases. And when you walk into a networking situation or you're building a relationship with someone, you bring all those assumptions with you. You bring those prejudices, you bring that bias, you bring those stereotypes. So I have been at the gym and I have watched some. I used to go to a gym with only women. And I would be in the locker room, and some of the young women I would hear talking about their science careers, because this is Boston and that happens everywhere. And, you know, I would see them look right through me. I am like the biggest node for science jobs in Boston. If they would like not ignore me as an older person, and, you know, their assumption is that I am not useful, I am not interesting because I am old. Okay. And, you know, that bias, you know, actually, a few of those women I did become friendly with, and I actually did help them with their careers. Two of them actually became longtime 10-year mentees, and I was a big help to them in both sponsoring and mentoring them, you know, in their careers, people that I met at the gym, you know. So, you know, you have to be, that's just an example from my own life. But if you are, you know, a person of any type of marginalized group, if you have tattoos, if you have, there's just like all these things that people, if you dress a certain way, if you have a certain gender identity that you portray in your external appearance, if your skin is a different color, as you all know, all those things, we are making judgments about that, and it affects our ability to build relationships. So y'all know about bias. You all know that it's this thing that we do that's the fast thinking, that we're making those assumptions very quickly, and it is very automatic. And as I said, all these things trigger our biases, every one of the social identities, and even some that are not listed here. And then we have bias against all sorts of other things. Just to remind you, we have bias against people's names. How can you possibly know something about someone because of their name? We have biases against people because of their appearance. We have weight bias. It's just like goes on and on. So what can you do about bias? You know, there is only one thing to do about it, and that is to be aware of it and to question your assumptions all the time. Every time you're making assumptions about people, when you're hiring them, when you're thinking about who to promote, when you're giving job assignments, don't say, well, that person doesn't want that job because XYZ of their identity. You don't know. So the idea is to avoid those assumptions, but it's especially important when you're networking because you have no idea who's going to be interesting, helpful, a contact that's going to be valuable to you in the future. So my advice to you is if you are a person that goes to events or if you are seeking out people to do one-on-one networking with, don't make assumptions about people by their appearance or by what you hear about them. So what is networking? Well, it's making conversation with strangers. So I'm bridging now into the how, not the what and the why. So there's two parts of it. One is that you have to be interested in other people. There's nothing worse than going to an event or meeting someone and having that person look over your shoulder if someone more important or interesting is on the other side of the room. When you talk to people, you want to actually engage fully in the conversation. You want to put your phone away. I am by the way, I'm not a technophobe. I'm a level 50 Pokemon Go player. My phone is in my hand all the time. Okay. So, you know, but the time to do it is not when you are talking to human beings, either on Zoom or in person. Engage with people. I'm so grateful to the people that are online on video. And so I can see you because for me to talk to a black box is horribly painful. So you have to be interested in people and genuinely find that interest, right? And you also have to be interesting, which means that you're going to have to share a little bit. I had someone ask me about the cultural significance of that, since some cultures are less open about sharing personal things. I would say in this country and in relationship and building in general, you don't have to share like deeply personal things, but having something to talk about in your day really makes those type of conversations with strangers much easier. We've talked, you can talk about the weather. It's a very safe topic. You can talk about your children. I talk about my grandchildren because they're so cute, like things that people can sympathize with. I always like when I'm talking to someone who's very different from me to see how long it takes us to find something that we're the same about. I was in a bus in Senegal at a meeting called the Next Einstein Conference, and I was sitting next to a scientist from Morocco, and we started talking. And I was like, I don't know what we have in common, but let's try and figure it out. And her English was very good, and I do not speak any Arabic, so wasn't able to speak in her language. But we started chatting, and we both discovered that we had mothers who were fantastic at shopping. Like my mother-in-law is the best shopper, and my mother is not. So it really shocked me when my mother-in-law can buy me clothes, can buy me shoes. She's just really good at it. And so this person and I talked about that for quite a while. We connected after on LinkedIn. We stayed in touch for some time. Like it's those small personal things, and those stories are the things that you're going to remember. So you may not remember a lot about this talk, but you are going to remember that I met this woman from from Morocco on a bus in Senegal. Okay. Because people remember stories. So you have to be thinking about what your stories are. If you're at a networking event and someone comes up to you and says, "Hey, what's going on?" And you say, "Nothing." Like that is not going to take the conversation very far. So experienced networkers take a moment before they enter into it is, what do I have to talk about today? Like, what am I going to tell you about today? Even if it's just little bits of news or family business or personal struggles, there has to be something, because if you're not interested in interesting, you won't be able to have a conversation with a stranger. Super hard. So we're going to talk about other ways to practice that. Okay, so I think, do we want to do the breakout? We're good for that? Okay, so we're going to put you into random breakouts. I see about 22 people, so maybe 6 rooms perhaps. Can we do that? So yeah, 6, maybe 7 rooms. Let's do small groups. 7 random rooms. And what I would like you to do is practice being interested and interesting. I would like you to introduce yourselves, talk about your name, what research or work that you do, and make sure to share one personal thing and one professional struggle that you are having, something that you are struggling with, whatever that is. Please come back after the breakout. I have a lot more really great content, but I really want you to practice this talking to a stranger for a minute before we learn more about it, okay? Okay, are we ready? Okay, welcome back, everybody. Thank you for coming back. I'm always worried people are just going to take off, but it is really important to practice, because I really wanted you to have the experience. That is it. You just networked. You just talked to a stranger. Maybe it was someone you knew. Maybe it was someone you didn't know well. But that is networking. That's all you need to do. And, if you're in a one-on-one, like an informational interview, you may have to talk for longer than 5 minutes. But if you're at a networking event or you're just meeting someone out and about or at a program or something, all it needs is a few minutes to make a touch with someone and see if you have more in common to follow up with. So what are you practicing when you're practicing networking? And we're going to talk about some other ways to practice. You're practicing that being interested, that attentive conversation, not looking over your shoulder, not looking at your phone. You're practicing talking to strangers. It's hard to talk to strangers. It's not like talking to family or close friends. You're practicing listening. To be honest, people who are more quiet and more introverted are actually better networkers. And the reason for that is because they are good listeners, and good listeners are good people at building relationships. So I admire that. It is not my strength, but if it is your strength, you should capitalize on that. And also, as I mentioned, sharing something that's not work related or a little bit personal, being ready to share a story. That's what we're practicing when we're talking about practicing networking. So again, talking more about the how to, when I think about networking, I don't jump into it thinking like, what can this person do for me? How can they help me? How can they give me something, money for my organization or job? What I'm thinking is, how can I help them? Because anything that I can give to them, any information, help, support, even if it's a small favor, that's building relationship in a huge way. And that stuff that you do for other people may not come back to you directly, but it comes back to you in the karma. So all those favors that you do, you never know when they're going to come back to you, but they do. I can guarantee you that they do. I have a million stories about when they have. So listening to what other people need and thinking about how you can help them, who you can connect them to. One of the biggest favors you can do to someone who's at an event is go talk to someone who's standing alone. That is a favor, right? Who no one wants to stand alone at a networking event. So going up and saying hi and introducing yourself, that's like a very nice thing to do. Maybe you read someone's paper. Do you know how much scientists love it when someone reads their paper and sends them a note that says, hey, I read your paper, figure 3 was really interesting. That is like a huge thing in tech and STEM. So there's a lot, even early in your career, don't tell me, oh, I'm not important enough, I can't help. Everybody can help. Everybody, even just listening to someone is a way of helping other people. So think about how you can be supportive and go into your networking not being demanding. Again, this is why it's good to do when you don't need a job, because when you're networking for a job, you actually do need something pretty bad. I get that. And so it's really good to do it when you can offer with a full heart to do something for someone else. If you're a jerk and you want to be a jerk, that's okay, but you won't get the favors coming back to you if that's how you are, if you're not thinking about helping people. Okay. So as I talked about it, I do not think that everyone should go to events. I am going to talk about events and other networking situations in a minute, but they are not for everyone. My husband keeps an extra shirt in his office. If he has to take his team out to drinks, he gets so nervous that he has to change shirts before he comes home. Like he's just like hates events, hates, but he's really great one-on-one. He loves what he does. He's a rocket scientist. He will talk to you about aerospace and US defense all day long. He has a lot to say about it. But he just doesn't like events. It's just not his thing. He goes to temple and he leaves right after services. I will stay for the reception. Like it's just like he's not interested in doing that, right? And he has friends, by the way, also that he will talk to. So one way to practice talking to strangers, especially if interviewing is hard for you, is informational interviews. And so I want to make really clear what those are and make sure that it's something that's in your toolbox, because it is one of the best ways to practice, to build relationships, to practice interviewing and practice talking to strangers one-on-one, not in an event situation. So an informational interview is not a request for a job because you're not asking for something. It's very low stress and the other person is more likely to share useful information and to say yes about doing it. So what you want to do is like prepare for it. It's best if you can go in person, but obviously not everyone lives where you live. So Zoom chats can also work. Be prepared with questions to ask the person. You can go online and find all kinds of questions to ask. I have a whole blog about this topic you can search for. It's a really good time to ask personal questions. How much money do you make? How much money should I expect to make? What is promotion like? What did you have to do to get promoted? How did you get your job? What did you learn? What were the steps that you took? Learning from other people is a fantastic way to figure out how to navigate career changes and the tough, and then we will all make them and opportunities, right? So where can you find people to informationally interview? People around you, alumni of your lab, alumni of your organization, your undergraduate alumni. You have a database. A lot of people people in your family who have taken a career path that's interesting to you. If you have a community, so I know all the Orthodox Jewish scientists in Boston. Our kids went to school together. A lot of them go to my temple. That is a group of people I can call on and do an informational interview with anytime. If you have a social group or a social identity, we'll talk about networking groups in a second. Anybody from those organizations would probably be happy to talk with you. As always with networking, you may ask 5 people for an informational interview. 2 of them may say no or ignore you. No big deal. It's an honor to be asked. Don't worry about it. Move on. You want to focus on the yes people. It's not the no people that you want to focus on. They're not going to be helpful to you anyway. They're either too busy. It's not about you. It's about them for sure. So most people love to have these kind of conversations with aspiring people in their career, or even peers is a great, people. So think about who you might have an interesting conversation with if you're building your network. So we talked a little bit in the breakouts. I hope you all shared something that you were struggling with. Telling people that you need help with something is a great way to build relationship, believe it or not. It turns out that other people, humans like to help other people. So this is why Benjamin Franklin is on this slide. Benjamin Franklin, for those of you that are not born and bred in the US, he is one of the founding fathers of the United States. He was on the Pennsylvania legislature and part of the founding, Declaration of Independence writers and all that stuff. And he was kind of a jerk. People did not like him. He was very irritable, irascible. He was very blunt. And so he found he had enemies. So when he had someone who didn't like him, he would ask them to borrow a book. He would ask them for a favor. And what he discovered was that he would return the book. It was like borrowing someone's iPad. It was a much bigger deal back in those days. He would return the book and he would tell the person how smart they were for buying that book, for having it, for thank them for lending it and how much he enjoyed it. Super good, right? This is called the Benjamin Franklin effect. When we help people, we think we like them more. Because why would I help someone that I don't like? It's a psychological principle of relieving cognitive dissonance. I must like you if I helped you. So when people help you, they actually like you more. Okay. So this is actually a great trick. If there's someone in the lab or at work that you're not getting along with, ask them for restaurant recommendations. Take their advice and then tell them how smart they were to give you that recommendation and how much you enjoyed it, or a book or a music or whatever. And you will see that they will thaw towards you. It is freakily works well. Don't tell everybody I told you. This works freakily well because the Benjamin Franklin effect is something that we are always have in place, which means that you should not be worried about asking for help. And telling people what you need. People love to solve your problems, not just finding jobs, but all kinds of other problems. Of course, you don't want to become overdependent. So the one person that helps you, don't call them every day. That's not a good thing. And if someone doesn't get back to you again, don't worry about it. No big deal. There's plenty of yes people. Don't worry about the no people. So I am going to talk a little bit about events, because events is one of the fortuitous ways to meet people that you wouldn't expect. I have relationships with so many people who I have met fortuitously. It is a bit tiring, so be ready to be exhausted a little bit. Prepare yourself, do that homework. What are you willing to talk about today? If the event has a speaker, maybe you want to learn a little bit about the topic so you have something to talk about. Check your biases at the door. Do not go up to someone because they don't look like someone you should talk to. That's a very bad idea. You have no idea who someone is based on their appearance. And virtual events can also have opportunities. You can side chat people, you can get their contact information. It is a really good way to meet a couple new people. So the easiest way to meet people and score points at an event is to talk to someone who's standing alone, and open your group up. Bring someone into your groups for someone that's alone, because there's nothing worse than trying to break into a bunch of friends that are talking at an event, right? So that is a huge good deed that you do, and it will come back to you, as I said, when that person respects you for being open and helpful. So you don't have to get 50 business cards. You don't have to meet 100 people. If you sit in the corner and talk to one person that you later want to have coffee with, that event has been an enormous success. It is not a volume thing. It is a relationship thing. It's a quality thing, right? So if you're talking to someone and there's no quality to that conversation and you're at an event, say, hey, I'm going to go get a drink. It's been really nice meeting you, and move on. But if you find that person that you're enjoying conversation with, don't look over their shoulder for someone better. Immerse yourself in that conversation. I find myself talking to people, not the expected person all the time in the corner, and it has benefited me enormously over the years. Those are the people that turn out to be good contacts and good colleagues. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about LinkedIn and online networking, because it is our primary network. And Chris asked, is it helpful to bring business cards? Does anyone have a business card anymore? I think it's helpful. I think it would be better if you learned how to beam your information on LinkedIn with your phone. Do you know that LinkedIn has this? You can Google how to do this. You can show someone a barcode for your profile on LinkedIn, and they can connect with you right there in that minute. So I would recommend that you do that. And we're going to talk about using LinkedIn as your Rolodex. You could have a business card if you want. It just, after the pandemic, I think the exchange of objects from your hand is no longer a thing. A lot of people don't shake hands anymore. That's another thing, because of the pandemic. So, that's an adjustment that we're sort of making. If you want to have a business card, especially if you're like a marketing person and you think it looks cool, sure, you could have a business card. I haven't had one in about 10 years, I think. I just connect with people right on the spot. So, excuse me, talking about LinkedIn. So you do have to be on LinkedIn. If you're in academia, perhaps you can get through your career without being on LinkedIn, maybe. But if you are exiting academia to a non-academic career, everybody is on LinkedIn. Please do not make the mistake of saying, oh, I don't do social media. I'm too cool for that. I do not do LinkedIn. LinkedIn is not about Facebook or Insta or any of those things. It is how people find you for jobs. They're going to look for you. If you're not there, it's going to be weird. So you got to do it. Just do it. As I think I shouldn't have to tell anyone in your generation, I don't know how old you are, I shouldn't be ageist, but we shouldn't have to tell anyone anymore that you shouldn't put dumb stuff on LinkedIn. Be careful. It doesn't mean you shouldn't put what you really feel and believe, but be really careful. Don't be stupid. Do not put naked pictures online where people can find them. No one's interested. Do not hit anybody up or flirt with them on LinkedIn. That is absolutely a no-no. It's not okay. It is never okay. So LinkedIn is a professional. You should behave as if you were a professional at all times. It doesn't mean you shouldn't have your own flavor and taste. I'm not saying don't be yourself. I'm just saying don't be a jerk and don't be unprofessional, whatever that definition is for you. Definitely have a professional, welcoming, clear picture. And one little tip of advice, this whole talk, this is not my full LinkedIn talk, but you don't want to list like what you did in your job because people know what you did in your job. You learned how to be a scientist. You can pipette, or you can do, if you're a software person, you can code, like whatever those things are. You can have those skills on there, but what you really want is your success stories. You want bullets that say, what did you do well? How did you come in ahead of schedule, pull together a rough team, under budget, won an award because you were so awesome? You want to be able to toot your horn. So you can look at profiles on LinkedIn that you admire, and you'll see that the best ones, people have little bullets that say, this is what I accomplished, not what they did. Like, oh, I coded, I pipetted, I did cell assays. That is not really what people are out there looking for. You should use the settings on LinkedIn to be visible. This is a job and an opportunity site. Do not hide yourself on LinkedIn. And one other pro tip I would say is that one way to find people easily, people don't know this, but you can put your email address and your contact information, and you can find that when you're connected to someone. If you navigate to that next to their picture, there's like 3 little dots and it'll say contact info. So take an hour and learn about LinkedIn. There's all kinds of online sites that tell you how to use it the best. You do not need to go down the rabbit hole if you hate social media, but not using LinkedIn at all is an enormous mistake. I really like LinkedIn. I get invited to speak because people find me there. I get invited for jobs. It's really, there's lots of really good advantages to it, some of which I will tell you as we go on. But at the very least, use it professionally and be available there. I actually don't have a resume anymore. I just use my LinkedIn profile as my resume. More about LinkedIn etiquette. Do invite people to connect that you have really met and talked to. Most of the time, I would not connect with strangers unless you have a good reason for doing so. Before today's talk, a few people connected with me and they were very careful to go to my profile, click from my profile on their desktop and send a note that said, hey, I'm looking forward to seeing you at the presentation. I accepted those invitations because it was not a creepy stranger. When people are creepy strangers and you get just a link from your phone, it doesn't send a note. No one has any idea why you're connecting with them. So I highly recommend that when connecting with people, do not do it from your phone or from a list that's served to you. Okay. Only do it when you can do it by connect and add a note to that connection. I actually, when strangers connect with me, I send them a message. There's a way to do that by going to on your desktop, going to your list of invitations and message them instead and say, hey, why are you connecting with me? Let's just remember why we're connecting because, I have 5,000 connections and I'm not going to remember why we connected a year from now, And so then I have these conversation records with all the people of why we connected in the first place. So that's using LinkedIn in a productive way. When strangers connect with me, it's not that useful. LinkedIn Premium. I have had it and I have not have it. I have it right now because one of my employers pays for it. I went a very long time without having it. Also at AdGene, they used to have a benefit where nonprofit leaders could have it for free, which was really nice. So if you're job hunting, it may be worth activating LinkedIn Premium for a little while. I don't think on a day-to-day basis I have found it necessary. But one reason for that is I have a lot of connections. And when you have a lot of connections, you're connected two ways, like by two steps to more people, which means more of the network is visible to you. Without premium, if you have a small network, you won't have as many people that you're able to connect directly. Was that clear? That has to do with the way LinkedIn works, and it's your connection, the people connected to your connections, you can see them. So if you have a lot of connections, that's a good thing. If not, it's worth doing for a little while. It's not that expensive for a short time. So if you are doing a job, oh, yes and no, the difference between yes and no. Yes, this is a profile page that you went to their LinkedIn profile on LinkedIn on your desktop, not on your phone, because you can't do it on your phone. Your phone only sends connections with no note. If you can click the connect here under Michael Drake, it's going to say, hey, connect with this person. Would you like to add a note? And you're going to say yes. And you're going to say, wow, I would love to be connected to the president of the University of California. If you were on your phone, you would just see this little thing for Peter Salovey, who's the president of Yale, and you would not be asked to write a note, which means you'd be sending, and you don't know him. So he's going to get this invitation from a stranger, and you're not telling him why you're connecting with him. So for example, I got one invitation this week. I'm giving a talk next week from someone who I can see is at the organization that I am going to be speaking at, but it wasn't personalized. So they're a total stranger to me. I have no idea technically why they're, although I can guess it's because I'm going to speak there. But you want to add a note and say, Joanne, I'm looking forward to seeing you speak next week. I'd like to connect and make you part of my network. Zach asks, how well should you know someone to connect? People often suggest connecting with speakers. Sure. I think I don't mind when people say I saw you, as long as they put a note and say I saw you speak, I would love to connect. I have a few more questions. Most speakers are very happy with that. The creepy thing is the strangers that connect with you. First of all, there are bots on LinkedIn, and so some of them are fake profiles. So if someone doesn't put a note, I'm going to assume it's a bot, right? Especially if they have like actually the Shah of Saudi Arabia has connected with me a number of times, and so I don't accept those invitations, right? So I think for me, it's like someone that you've met or that you have a good reason to connect with them, and not, someone who you just think looks interesting. And LinkedIn will serve you these suggestions, by the way. Sorry, I have got a cold from my grandkid. LinkedIn will give you all these suggestions. I don't recommend that you just click connect willy-nilly. It's really useless. People that you don't have a relationship with are not actually connections. So to me, I think that's just a waste of time and is a little creepy. Okay, so you can use LinkedIn for your job searching. And there's a lot of ways to do that. One of the most common ways is if you get a list of people that you're going to interview with, you might want to look up the people that are going to interview you to learn a little bit about them. That is completely acceptable. It would not be weird if they saw you looking at their profile. I don't recommend that you connect with them. That is not okay if you've just had an interview. That puts a lot of pressure on someone. You connect with them after you get the job, but I would not connect with someone that's interviewing you, but you could certainly look them up. I have been interviewed by people, I've been interviewing people, and they've said, hey, I see you went to University of Pennsylvania. I'm an alum. I would be like, oh, great. That's a really nice thing to share. It wasn't weird to me at all that they looked me up. I'm assuming that they looked me up if I'm interviewing them. The other thing is LinkedIn has a lot of information about the company. It's a good place to start looking at their posts, looking at what the organization is like. And so that's a really good place to start your research when you're interviewing. Of course, you should always research the employer that's interviewing you before your interview. One other tip that I put here is I get a lot of like one word messages from people or one line messages because LinkedIn has these two settings. You can either click return to send or you can click send. And if you change your settings, it makes fewer mistakes and it lets you reread a message before you send it, which I always want to do to appear more professional, especially if I'm reaching out to someone new. Okay. Yeah, and someone says LinkedIn Premium allows you to send unlimited notes. I don't think it's unlimited, but it's a lot. Um, yes. Right. Add a note to your invitation. Always add a note to your invitation. So those are some of the comments in the chat about adding a note. Definitely add a note every time that you can. Okay, so I have 5,000 contacts. LinkedIn used to have this little plugin where you could map your network. And this was my network. And one of these arms is like Abbott, and one is RXI, and one is AWS. And you can't possibly stay in touch with all these people for the rest of your life. That is not the point. If you've had a nice interaction with someone and you've connected with them, that's, like good enough, so it is a useful tool. You can follow things. You can if you see updates at someone's company, if you see they get laid off, if you can send a note and just say, hey, I'm sorry that you got laid off. Do you want to have coffee, or do you need support, or hey, I have something, whatever. You don't have to meet with someone every day. I have people that I haven't talked to in 20 years, but when I need them, I can still go back and reach out to them through LinkedIn or through my network. So the idea of networking is not to like suddenly have people you have to keep in touch with all the time. It's just building a relationship in the moment. So this is really the meat of this talk. You hate networking. You don't want it to feel creepy, and you don't want it to feel forced and awkward. And so if you really want to be naturally meeting people and naturally developing relationships, my advice is to get active in something that is not your day-to-day work. Join a group, whatever group that is, whatever local networking group. It's great if you meet other scientists. Maybe you play the oboe and you join a symphony. Okay, that's good too. But it's good to do your networking in places where you will meet other people who may someday be useful for your career or your job. Make it feel normal. Don't do things that feel awkward. When you do work with people, so most of my network was built working through networking groups, a lot of them through women in science groups, which is where I've done a lot of work, and the racial equity groups, people working on diversity, because I was meeting people who were passionate about the same things I was and cared about those things. And we did work together. And doing work together is the best way to find people that you build relationship with, even if it's like, excuse me, plan an event, collect money at the door, buy the drinks and set them up. Like all those little things that you do with people. Maybe you have a postdoc association or a grad student association. Maybe GPS has, ways that you can volunteer and get involved. Meet people in a normal way, working with them. I have actually had jobs where some of my non-volunteer relationships have been my references for my job. Because, when I joined Agene is a nonprofit, and they wanted to know that I understood nonprofit because I had worked in for-profit for 20 years before that. And so nonprofit presidents of boards that I was on were my references for that job. So that's really trying to, network in a way that feels natural to you. Don't do it in a way that feels creepy. So if it feels creepy, it probably is. So I have people ask me all the time, I've called this person 4 times and they don't get back to me. They're not going to get back to you. Move on. Okay. Like, I get this holiday card, very personal holiday card every year from someone who I do not know. It's been going on for like 20 years. I have no idea who they are. I don't know how they have my email address. I look at their profile on LinkedIn. I don't even know how we met. And every year this person shares an extremely personal and asks me questions about my children with their names. I don't even know this person. It is very creepy. Okay. So, and every year I'm writing back, happy holidays to you too. Like, I don't know who this person is. So, what you really want is the real relationships that don't feel weird, that don't feel strange, and be meeting people in ways that feel normal. And that you practice. Practice makes it easier for sure. So these are my main messages. Don't wait until you need a job. Be interested and be interesting. You do not have to network with people you don't like. I get that a lot. Oh, that person's important. I should network with them, but they're a jerk. Don't network with jerks. Why would you do that? There's no reason for you to do that. But be open to meeting people that are very different from you, because a lot of times those are the people that are going to be the most interesting and the most helpful. Thanks for coming today. I hope this was helpful. You can all reach out to me on LinkedIn if you like. I do want to remind you that UC Irvine is an institutional partner of the Association for Women in Science. I'm on the National Board of AWIS. I'm the founder of the Boston chapter. You can join for free. Note that it is the Association for Women in Science, not of Women in Science. Anyone is welcome to join AWIS and attend their events, people of all identities. And so that might be a good place to start. It is a very safe and nice space. I know you have nice chapters there in California, and it would be a good place to meet people in a very safe environment. And that is all I have, and I'm happy to take questions if you come off mute or in the chat, either way.
So thank you very much for the talk. So I wonder if you can talk a bit about the organization you mentioned. Is it like about networking events, or what would it offer?
Yeah, the Association for Women in Science is a national organization based in Washington that is decades old, is the first women in science organization actually to do advocacy for women, involved in Title IX, involved in a lot of, and they still do advocacy. We still do advocacy. The chapters are more about networking and career development. A lot of great events. Check out the website of your local chapter and the national organization. There are also you have local trade organization. We have Mass Bio. I'm not sure what you have out there, but you must have a bio type organization. There's Out in STEM. There's Black scientists in pharma. There's all kinds of networking groups. We have Asian AAPI group here in Boston. I don't know if I assume you have one in California for scientists, people in biotech and STEM. AWIS is a little unique in that it covers all of STEM, tech, engineering, math, medicine. It's really kind of all it, and is generally just great events, great speakers, and I always recommend pick one organization and go deep. Get involved, get on the board, get on a committee, because if you go deep, that's how you're going to get to know people. If you touch a lot of organizations, you won't get to know people as well. So start out by checking a few of them out, see what you like, and then go deep on one. Get involved and give your time. That's a really good way to build your network.
Thank you.
Other questions? And the link is in the chat. So
yeah, I can ask one.
thanks.
First, thank you so much for giving the lecture. I appreciate it. I do try and network quite a bit, and I think like myself, I would consider, or like yourself, I would consider myself an extrovert. And so I do get energized by people, but sometimes like I just really kind of show up and I just don't want to talk to someone. I have low energy. And so I'm kind of curious, like, in those cases, maybe, I don't know, maybe it's similar to your husband. Like, how does he network? Like, presumably he doesn't do well with like big settings, but he's still successful at it.
Yeah, so he does a lot of informational interviewing, a lot of one-on-one, a lot of like have coffee with me, meet, half an hour on Zoom. He does not like events. He will never choose an event as a way to talk to people. If you are in an event and you're finding that you're just overwhelmed, go on that like talk to one person situation. Take all the pressure off yourself. So I was at this event where Agene was getting a Best Place to Work award, and it was at this bar in the Seaport down here. And it was really, really loud, and I was really hungry because I hadn't eaten. And they were serving kombucha, which I hate. I don't know. I have no interest in that food at all. And I want, and so I found the bar in the corner, and I got a glass of seltzer, with lemon in it. I was like, oh, thank God, because I need something to drink. And I was just sort of like overwhelmed by the whole thing. And this other woman came up to me. And she's like, where did you get that seltzer kombucha? I'm like, that guy over there. She's like, don't move. So the two of us went in this quiet corner, and she turned out to be the COO of the company that makes Guitar Hero, which was a woman my age. So she was in her 50s. I'm 60 now. She was in her 50s at the time. And I was amazed that a woman was the COO of that very techie, like game company. And so I had a million questions for her. And we sat in the corner, and I ended up actually doing some work with her team on an inclusion presentation and stuff. So and I did not talk to a single other person at that event. There were hundreds of people there. I sat in the corner with her, and heard about her career and how she got to be the COO as a woman of this company, which I thought was amazing. And for me, that was huge success, so that's the kind of, it's that talk to one person situation. I never try volume. I always try to, it's quality, not quantity. Is that helpful?
Yeah, it is. And then I was also curious because you're talking about psychological tricks and stuff like that. Do you have like a go-to, you're walking around and you're like, man, I don't know how to introduce myself to a conversation or start a conversation. Do you have like a go-to trick or something, or is it always kind of just off the cuff every time?
Yeah, so I'm pretty open to sharing what's going on in my head. So not everybody's like that. So, I will go up to a stranger and be like, how did you like the event? How did you like the speaker? Or what brings you here today? And then be ready, if they're not ready to kind of dive in, be ready to share something myself, and that may be like, oh my goodness, my sprinklers are broken and it was a huge pain today. And the repairman came and it was unbelievable nitwittery. Everyone was getting wet. They don't know why they're broken. Like whatever, whatever the thing is, right? Be ready with something to break the ice, if you will, as it were. And it doesn't have to be deep. It's just, being ready to be open and ask questions. So like I said, I'm a talker. That's how I break the ice. But you can be a listener and break the ice too. You can ask questions. How was your day? What do you work on? Oh, that's interesting. How did you get that job? That's really cool. I wish I had that, knew more about that. Could you tell me more about that? Tell me more about that is like the best thing you can say to someone, really, when, show interest in what they're talking about. So is that helpful at all? I don't have any magic tricks. I think it's just actually being ready to engage in the conversation. I totally get the tired thing. So sometimes you just can't bring it. And I totally get that, Nitish, did I say that right?
Yes, that's correct, Joanne. Thank you. Some of the key takeaways from your presentation was be interested and be interesting, and also reach out to connect with people whom you build real relationships, because I just hit connect to everyone. And also the interviewing piece was something important, because I would think it was okay for me to send connection requests even before the interview was complete, but then I'm like, okay, fine. It's good that that person didn't accept my request before the interview now.
It's a little pushy, right? I mean, think about how you would feel. It puts them on the spot, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. And
Yeah.
one question I had was regarding following up. I think I'm good at, I'm okay at connecting, but what suggestions do you
Yeah.
have at following up with people?
It's really good. I didn't have time to go into that too much, and I'm a little worried because we're at the top of the hour. I'm going to answer this question, then I think we're going to finish up. Sorry about that. I wasn't keeping my eye on the clock. Really following up is again, you don't have to have daily contact, but like being on LinkedIn and seeing something happen with their company, or even just making a comment if they do a career update, or if you find a paper that would be interesting to them, or if you're networking well, you're going to run into them again. And then the relationship is going to get deeper. If you find someone you really enjoy talking to, invite them for coffee. It's a real compliment to be invited to spend an hour with a person, right? And then you've solidified your relationship. You've spent an hour of coffee or Zoom with someone, really talking about them deeply. So following up is really about continuing to touch and run into them, because you're in the same circles and you're meeting people, and then also showing interest by saying, hey, I would like to talk to you more. I've contacted you. You're not going to do that with every person. Again, I have 5,000 connections. I haven't had coffee with all of them. But I do reach out to them when I'm looking for information. I will search my LinkedIn for someone in a certain field and say, hey, David, I wish I have a question about this. Could you help me? And oftentimes they will, right? So, that's how you build relationship, is sort of the long game. It's not the like tomorrow, it's like over time, Okay, sorry I went over. I did not have my eye on the clock. If you have more questions, you all have my, you can contact me on LinkedIn. I will accept all your invitations. Feel free to ask. Go ahead. Sorry about that.
No worries. You're not creepy to Joanne anymore now, so you can reach out and she's going to accept you. And that's a great one. I think someone put that in the chat as one of their key takeaways is not to be creepy. And people are putting in the chat for you what some of their key takeaways are. I think as a speaker, it's nice to see what people take away, and it's good for other people to have that reminder too of key takeaways. So thank you for doing that. Quick reminder of homework for next week. Watch one of the LinkedIn videos. Joanne touched on some of them, but there's some great content in Beyond the Professoriate about some of those tips and tricks that she was talking about, and you all have access to that. So watch one of those LinkedIn videos. And then just make sure that you have a LinkedIn. And that is basically your homework assignment between now and next week. And then for our fourth module, we're welcoming back Amy and Quadwo, and they're going to talk about interviewing and salary negotiation, which networking, informational interviews, all of those things prep you for interviewing and salary negotiation. So it's going to be a great follow-up from Joanne's talk today. So that's all for my announcements. I know we're a bit over, but if you can join me in thanking Joanne, a virtual applause for her. And let me know if you have any questions between now and next week.
Thanks, everybody.